Okay, Neeraj sir, go ahead. You are live now. Unmute yourself, sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Myself, Neeraj Arora, Senior Director at SOCHIM, after the education vertical at SOCHIM and sustainability certification program of SOCHIM. Myself, Neeraj, on behalf of SOCHIM National Education Council, I would like to welcome you all for this wonderful debate we are going to do today, because this is a very burning issue. See, when this COVID was started in March or so, we were very much worried about that how our education system will go, how our education system will survive. But now we can see that our educational institutions, our universities, and all are working very hard towards this, and they are now handling the situation with the online system. So we were running this offline system since many years, thousands of years or 100 years, I must say. But now we are using this online system since last 4 months. So all the systems, whether it is offline or online, has its benefit, has its challenges. So our today's debate is on that what should be the best assessment approach for higher education institutions, whether it should be offline or it should be online or it should be a blended. For this discussion, and I am hopeful that after this discussion we will definitely get a substantial solution that what should be the right answer. So for this discussion, we have with us very eminent speakers from the government sides, from the educational and institution sides, and we have the eminent speakers from the edtech companies also. So we have the user, we have the service provider, and we have the people from those who are making the rules and regulations for us, regulatory bodies. So first of all, I would like to congratulate all of you that now our nation has National Education Policy 2020 with us. So congratulations to you, to all of you. Today we have with us Shri Kumar Shekhar Vijendra ji, who is the co-chairman of SOCHM National Council on Education and is the chancellor of Shobit University. We have with us Professor Rajiv Kumar, who is the member secretary AICT. We have with us Mr. Sanjay Singh, education segment specialist and SVP, education and government policy VBox. Shri KK Agarwal ji, chairman National Board of Accreditation. Mr. Vishnu Nepak, digital transformation consultant, CRO VBox, and Dr. Poonam Devdut. She is the director, Center for Psychology and Human Behavior, Shobit Deemed University. Now, I will not take much time between you and our eminent speakers, and would request Shri Kumar Shekhar ji for his welcome address. And sir, please set the tone of the program. Kumar Shekhar ji, over to you, sir. Unmute yourself, sir. Unmute, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Neeraj.
Thank you.
And on behalf of SOCHM, National Council on Education and Shobit University, I welcome all the eminent panelists of the day today. Today we will be talking about what may be the best assessment approach for higher educational institutions, online or offline. As Neeraj mentioned, this is a very burning and important topic today. The country is talking about it. I, on behalf of its chairman Shobit University, welcome Professor Rajiv Kumar, Member Secretary of AICT, a well-known educationist, regulator, administrator, and a facilitator. Professor KK Agarwal ji, the chairman of National Board of Accreditation, an eminent educationist, policy maker, and a mentor and guide for many of us. And Mr. Vishnu Nepak, they are from VBox. They will be talking about what industry is doing and how it is good or bad what should be used. Along with me, Neeraj is there and Dr. Poonam Devdutt is there. And this session will have, first we will request all the panelists to share their views. After that, we will try to have a question answer session. So those who are listening to us or those who are seeing us live, they may share their questions also so that we can take them later on. Before we start, first of all, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our Honorable Minister of Education, Dr. Ramesh Pokhriyal Nishank ji, for a historical event for declaring and announcing new education policy 2020. After 3 decades, a new policy has come. And after going through the policy, definitely I was thinking at least that if I could go to the university back. Because there are so much promises, so much new is there. It is technology oriented, full of innovation, inclusivity is there, and there is so much to do new that can help all of us to learn new things in a better way. Especially when I look at the multidisciplinary approach, what new education policy is talking about. Definitely, like when we were students, we had very limited scope what we have to do. Now, during this COVID time, I explored that I could be a painter also. When I had nothing to do, I started painting. And if this new education policy, these possibilities were there, maybe I could have become a painter also, apart from being in education. So I congratulate Honorable Minister and Ministry of Education for this wonderful job, and I am sure it will help all those youth in our young nation, those who are aspiring, those who have potential to fulfill their potential, to turn their potential into reality, and it will help us to fulfill the dream and desires of our youth in a better way. The policy talks about National Educational Technology Forum, an autonomous body which will take care of the technical involvement of everybody, and a dedicated unit for digital infrastructure into educational institution at large. Now, if I look at assessment, many times when we look at assessment today, I was looking at the data out of 1,000 universities, around 178 universities of the country, they have already done assessment either through online examination or whatever way during these COVID times. And UGC guidelines, they are talking about that now the rest should go for assessment. But there is a protest, there is acceptance, many issues are there which need to be addressed. And if I look, assessment against predefined measures is an age-old practice. The science of assessment, however, is relatively new. Assessments are undergone a sea of change with the introduction of new age technologies like machine learning, artificial intelligence, robotic process automation, gamification, natural language processing, voice recognition, crowdsourcing, social media, big data analysis. So many things have come new. These technology solutions are fundamentally questioning the manner and beliefs of knowledge and talent assessment. Regardless to format of assessment, technology is becoming a critical part of learning as well as student performance. But when we talk about the importance of technology, the same time we have to understand that assessment of the social skills of the student have to be done. They cannot be done online. We have to look into the emotional skills of the student. They cannot be done online. It means a blended mode has to be taken care, and I believe that will be there. Today's discussion will help us to go from panic to a policy, as wonderful policymakers are with us. And this new normal, what we are talking about, it is many times I feel it is abnormal because the pandemic is there. But every abnormal or disruption, it comes with a silver line, because every disruption gives us a reason for new creation. And I'm sure that during this disruption also, we have a possibility to develop a system of assessment or knowing the people or delivering, as we all are doing online, and more and better role of a tech companies will be there in this. However, before making a policy on the same, we have to understand and appreciate that in spite of all the efforts what our government is doing under the dynamic leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Bhai Modi ji, there is still a digital divide. One of our universities is in a small town of district Saran. I know that whatever way we are doing the things, but still infrastructure, availability of right devices, connectivity, many times economical challenges, they are there. So those challenges also we need to take in consideration before making a policy. And one more important, the most important thing which is there, that in spite of the fact we can have best technology, but the mentality we are not able to change. The mindset we are not able to change. And today I am sure that today's discussion will help us not only to understand the importance of both type of assessment and what may be the best way, it will help us to remove some of the doubts which are becoming, which are stopping us from going for new technology. As C.K. Prahlad says, there are some blinders. We had a blinder that assessment can be only offline. That blinder is over now. But now new blinder is there that online only if it can be, it will be a new blinder. We have to remove that also. We have to find an optimized way how we can do it. So with that, I welcome again all the wonderful panelists, and we are keenly looking forward to know something new from you. Thank you very much. Over to you, Neeraj.
Thank you so much, sir. And definitely, sir, there is a saying that necessity is the mother of all inventions. So you are rightly said, sir. Every disruption gives us a way to invent some ideas, some new things, like online. I mean, we're planning to go online in next 5 years or so. But because of COVID, we are now online and working all the meetings, all the programs, all the webinars, and even the classroom studies through online. So thank you so much, Kumar Shekhar ji. Now we have with us Professor Rajiv Kumar. Rajiv Kumar ji is the member secretary AICTE. Rajiv ji has done his ME in computer technology and application from Delhi College of Engineering and PhD from IIT. After completing his PhD, he joined DCR University of Science and Technology, Haryana in the year of 90. His area of interest are mathematical computing, software engineering, image processing, and he has published number of research papers in national and international journals and presented in India and abroad. He has visited several universities in USA, Canada, China, and Malaysia. Sir, you are holding a very senior position in AICTE, and definitely AICTE is handling so many thousands of technical colleges and all across the country. And you must be facing this challenge that how the assessment will go on, how the examination will go on. And because in technical education, we have many laboratories, and students have to physically attend the laboratories and do the experiment work also. So this is going to be a very challenging job for the technical students. So we would like to hear from you that how you are going to face this challenge and how offline and online will work. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Neeraj. Respected Professor K.K. Agarwal ji, Chairman, National Board of Accreditation, and my Guru also, Kumar Shekhar Virendra ji, Co-Chairman SHM, Sanjay Singh ji, Education Segment Specialist from VBox, and Vishnu Napak ji from VBox, and Poonam ji. First of all, I thank ASSOCHAM for inviting me on such a burning topic, which is related to all, not only the youths, but also to those who are involved in education sector and even the parents also. So the topic of the today's discussion is what may be the best assessment approach for higher education institutions, online and offline. So I will start from the root cause. Online and offline comes afterwards. On what parameters we should assess a student? If you go and if you see the examination system in most of the universities, even in the best of the institution in India, you will find, and that has been mentioned in our education policy also, that is most of the question we are putting on the basis we are assessing our students, they are the rote learning. Even if we are assessing our students, our youth on the basis of rote learning through online and offline method, it doesn't matter. Okay. So the bigger question is not the online or offline, that can be sorted out at any stage. We can take any decision and it can be done at the convenience of the institution and convenience of the stakeholders. But the important point is on what parameters, on what basis we are assessing our students. That is the main cause of the assessment. And that's what we realized during our interaction with industry people 3 years back. When a student is scoring 95% marks in an university examination, our university is saying that this student is not at all not at use of the university. So that means there is some problem in our assessment system. We realized, we discussed with our industry friends, and we came out with a policy that is known as the examination reform policy. And that examination reform policy that is based on the route that is based on the Bloom's taxonomy, where remembrance, that's what we call it, call the rote learning, that is the bottom of that pyramid. And that Bloom's taxonomy says that there should be the minimum part of from that remembrance or the rote learning in the question. While in our assessment, we have the maximum part, and you can say in somewhere you can see 100% that is on the rote learning. So we came out with a policy. Coming out with a policy is not a difficult thing. You can frame, you can sit for some time, and you can sit with some experts, and you can come out with some policy. The important part is how to implement, how to train our faculty to frame question papers as per the Bloom's taxonomy. That was the biggest challenge. And we took that challenge, AICT took that challenge 2.5 years back, and we decided that we will train our faculty members. Initially we picked 4 to 5 trainers, those who were implementing this Bloom's taxonomy type of evaluation from the country, and we trained faculty members. So far we have trained, although the figure is very less as compared to the size of the faculty in our country, so far we have trained 3,500 faculty members based on the Bloom's taxonomy. Now we thought that it will be very difficult to train masses through these 4 and 5 people. Then we started train the trainers program. Now these train the trainer programs were going on. Then suddenly this pandemic started, and we have to switch over to the online mode in the training programs also. So these training programs, they are still going on. We are training teachers, and what important thing we have done, our VBox people, they will appreciate it, that we have made question banks based on the Bloom's taxonomy. And coming out question bank in all the areas, it is not a very simple thing. So you can say that these are the sample question banks we prepared. We asked experts, we asked universities, those who are assessing the students on the basis of Bloom's taxonomy, Please share your questions, and we put all these questions on our website. Although the question bank size of the data is very small, we are enriching it. We are requesting our friends that you please share your question paper, so that with your name we can put on our website that this question paper has been prepared by this university. So, but before putting on the website, we have a system that we get them vetted from the experts, and then we put on our website. So that is the very important part. And if you see at the Bloom's taxonomy, there are six stages. And the bottom four stages that can be evaluated through, say, online examination or offline examination, any way you call it, they can be assessed through these two modes. But the upper three layers of that Bloom's taxonomy, that is analyzing, evaluating, and creating, they can be evaluated only by projects or mini projects or minor projects or some hands-on part. It involves hands-on part that can be evaluated in laboratory also. So these are the things as far as evaluation is concerned. Now the another question is, which one is better, online and offline? As far as technical education is concerned, we cannot go completely on online mode, right? Because as we know that technical education involves a lot of hands-on part, and as far as evaluate this top of the creation and other thing, that as per the Bloom's taxonomy, that can be assessed through online mode also. But personally, what I feel that blended mode is the most convenient mode of evaluation as far as examination and assessment is concerned. Now there are so many tools. They are AI based tools. VBAX, so I know VBAX has already developed one tools and it is being implemented and used by various universities in the country. Similarly, many other organizations, they have also developed a similar type of tools. Now, people have mixed reaction on these tools, but most of them, those who have used these tools, or students, those are the stakeholders, they also have the mixed reaction, but the majority of them, they were satisfied, to whom I have discussed this issue. But still, we need to debate, and we have to experimental all such things before coming to a final conclusion. But in fact, definitely in this difficult time, this technology helped a lot to our stakeholders like students and universities, because there was no other alternate. But normal course of action, definitely blended mode will be the best mode for assessing and evaluating our students. With all these words, I pass on to this debate to next expert. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. And definitely, you are very right that immediately transferring the offline method into the online method will definitely be a challenging job, because what we were doing is we were taking the subjective questions as well as objective questions also during our examination. So in the online mode, objective questions, examinations based upon the objective questions are a little bit easy, but on the basis of subjective questions, it will definitely going to be a challenge. And also technical colleges have a major role, major marking system on the basis of laboratory work and physical trainings also. So that I think ICT and other institutions will have to take care of. Now to take it forward, we had a wonderful discussion with our next speaker yesterday during the demo. He is Mr. Sanjay Singh, educationist segment specialist and SVP Education and Government Policy from VBOX. Mr. Sanjay Singh is the man with a vision of educating and advocating an online education ecosystem for the future. Sanjay played a pivotal role in shaping up VBOX and Siddheshwar Gurukul School, where innovations evolve around education. Created author Park Gandhi, the story of ups and downs of small towners, sharing insights into the history of entrepreneurship. In the past, he has made generous contribution to education startups and social cause by supporting funding and business chairs. strong professional and ethical background, handled end-to-end business requirements from corporate customer handling to lead generation to product pitching to aggressive sales to drive customer delight. So, Sanjay ji, I mean, I'll start from what we were discussing yesterday. We were discussing that how, I mean, whether online is better or offline is better or blended is better, and we were discussing that in our assessment process, can we go with subjective questions also, and how the students will answer? And you were giving me a wonderful solution as well. So now this is over to you. Please let us know how we can resolve these challenges. Sanjay ji.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Neeraj ji. I would like to welcome. I've met many people before this COVID situation, but good to see Rajiv sir. You know, I think he is going younger by the age now. Or his age, but he's going every day. Every year I meet him. Kuwar sir has not changed. Poonam ma'am, welcome to you also. And Agarwal sir, of course, we are all. You are the dinosaur of this ecosystem. So. Yesterday was a very remarkable day. Before I share my screen, a very remarkable day, and I'd like to say not only the new education policy, what was not possible since a long time. You know, we had five raffle landing. You know, on the base of Ambala. So lot of good day for our nation. New education policy. Raffle landing at Ambala, a ministry which was named HRD for a long time, now converts and easily connects to people, which is now Ministry of Education. So actually, I see three important things in one single date. That's a vision. That's no doubt late Manohar Parrikar. He gave us Raffle. Ministers like Pokhriyal ji, they gave us the new ministry, and of course, all under the leadership of the new. We have. Without wasting any time, I've been listening. So क्या होगा? बहुत in the month of April when the education system actually, if I have to use a word, I'll use collapsed, because I also mentor one school which is in a very remote location. Has a fully embedded infrastructure to do not only the online classes, but they also do online examinations, and they do it every Monday. And they're the poorest in terms of they're very poor, but laptops have been funded by some good agencies, and they're doing it. So let me present you what is the agenda today. I'll just talk about 2-3 things, and the online versus the offline exams, the comparison and the benefits. The challenges of this online exam, which is the distributed environment in the entire system. What is the risk mitigation strategy? How do you take care of the risk? Then I'll give it to my colleague Vishnu. He's also there, and he'll take it over from there. So logistics was a major challenge, and this is not coming from a one-day preparation of this slide. This slide I've been preparing in the last 4 years' time. So. I used to go to a lot of colleges, universities, and talking about this to UGC and IGNOU and IOS. We were talking about the logistical challenge. So a question paper moving from the command center to the college, to the school classroom, then the delayed results, this scalability and the distribution model. So I always, a lot of times I saw Arunachal, Assam, Sikkim, Manipur. They all, they all got neglected when it came to the distribution of exams. Cost is, of course, a major important thing. Confidentiality and transparency. So these are the 5 things which we, every line talks about this. So confidentiality and transparency, leakage of the question paper, leakage of the paper, loss of the answer sheets. There are so many challenges, actually, and there are more challenges than what I have written. But these were the 5 topmost challenges which came to my mind when I was asked to present this. So now now we as edutech companies had not only a responsibility in terms of business profit, but plus the social responsibility and the moral responsibility. So how do we cater to this problem? We likely say, take the exam, monitor the exam, mentor the exam, proctor the exam, invigilate the exam anytime from anywhere. You may be in Andaman Nicobar Islands, or you may be in Russia. Instant result and analytics to have any doubts in mind. It is with services of Amazon, Microsoft, have a huge potential to do unlimited bandwidth. We everyday basis since 17th of May, we are doing 35 to 37,000 exams per day. The numbers are going higher and higher every day. And this is because you have a load of you have a load and you have a moral responsibility towards the exam integrity. The results are transparent and they are unbiased because machine does not understand the name, machine does not understand the character. What machine understands in what is one single thing is the coding, nothing else. Challenges of the distributed exam. When we started this, as I said, we were there 4 years before. But when we got into this real scenario of the problem, everybody thought COVID is there, so 7 days, then 10 days, then 21 days. By the time 1st March came in and people realized that this new friend of ours in the planet will stay for a long time. And it took a time for people to understand that what are the challenges. And then a lot of brainstorming was done with the mentors of IIT Bhubaneswar, the students of IITs, people from the ecosystem, people like Rajiv Kumar ji and Agrawal Saab, Neeraj ji, and everybody. So this ecosystem, when we spoke about, the challenge was the device. Which device to use for the examination? There is a problem of the bandwidth connectivity. And third was, how do we conduct an error-free online exams? Because students were not aware of online exams. So this was a challenge from the end user student. Either I have a device, there's a device problem because I have ran away from the hostel, so I don't have a laptop. I have a connectivity problem, and this all user problem. When I say connectivity computing device, people only thought that laptop is the only thing which will answer all the questions. No, it was not like that. So we scaled up to a mobile device. There are 25 billion IoT as of now worldwide. And I can easily vouch today that very soon you will have a day when from a smartwatch, we all will be answering quizzes and feedbacks. And we will all be ordering from smartwatch the Zomatos and the Ubers and the Swiggies of the world. Similarly, on bandwidth, I was talking to somebody yesterday. I said, see, when you say about a bandwidth choke, because there is a problem on the voice call. So it was the voice call which was on a problem because of the bandwidth network. But understand, the fiber optical from the top north Sikkim to Andaman Nicobar Islands have been well placed now. So internet, we have already moved from 3G to 4G. So internet was a challenge, is not a challenge currently anymore. And first-time users. So how do we handle this? And then Shobit University and other universities on the geography of our country had problems of how will you conduct the high-stake examinations if you get a computing device? What would be the security? What would be the compliances? How will we monitor real-time exams? And we answered each and every question with scalability. We partnered with Microsoft for Azure, wherein we got the cloud services. So the easy way of understanding the cloud today is the higher the user, the higher the scalability. So it moves like an elasticity model. Security and compliances. So we moved from a data transfer to a question upload system. You upload the question, you upload the test, you create the test for the universities and the college schools. Monitoring of real-time exams. So we made a scenario of a platform. We made a platform wherein not only the bona fide candidate would enter the exam with a 4-level digital verification, also on the real-time process, you will mentor, you will monitor, and will proctor. You will not only proctor, we will also give you a real life, like a classroom examination. We'll give you a connectivity to chat with the candidate and see him as a live feed. So these were some of the challenges which academic had and the users had, end users and academic. And because Kuwar sir was talking about the future skills of the employability also. So I'll talk as per his line. There are a lot of features when it comes to the proctoring solutions and on the examinations. So people talk about image proctoring, a video proctoring, which are the lowest stake examinations. Now comes a live proctoring with a video proctoring, with a remote proctoring, face tracking, face recognition, live proctoring, cognitive analytics, device detection, noise detection. This is all now all the AI features worldwide. We saw that Microsoft is one of the organizations which has given one of the biggest names in the education. And Microsoft also gives you 99.99% accuracy when it comes to the artificial intelligence. However, let me take a pause and tell you that this is all good when it comes to the other markets of the world. In our country, I personally very strongly feel that if you give a classroom scenario for mentoring and proctoring the examination, which is a simple proctoring, remote proctoring exam, everything you can do, because proctoring is more of an art than of a science. However, coming to the screen, I'll say that when it comes to the computers and when it comes to the consistent bandwidth, a remote proctor is the best to happen. If the bandwidth is inconsistent or low, then it's good to do an image proctor test. Then consistent bandwidth mobile devices, image proctor test, and similarly for the machine, for the mobiles also. We also had we of course Vishnu will talk more about the subjective test, because it became a big challenge that we were all on the MCQ platform. How do we do the subjective test? How do we allow candidates not only to type the answers but also to write pen and paper and then upload the image? So there are so many things we have evolved with now, and the right person, Vishnu. Why Vishnu? Because I want him to speak, because Vishnu comes from a background of Gartner, and Vishnu, very importantly, Vishnu also worked for 6.5 years at Microsoft. So Vishnu understands the education ecosystem end to end. With Gartner and with Microsoft, he brings in deep dive on education. So believe me, it is good to hear from Vishnu and learn from Vishnu what the ecosystem is all talking about, and how is this new new abnormal becoming normal in times to come. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Sanjay, for this wonderful address. And I mean, I really want to understand and really want to see that how students are going to take, write their answers and going to upload those answers on the portal, on the systems. So I would like to add here what Rajiv ji was saying, that as I mentioned that I look after the GEM Green Building Certification Program of ASSOCHAM as well. So there, what we used to do is we used to conduct physical trainings in the universities, colleges, education institutions, where we used to go there and we conduct 2 days training, and then we conduct the examination over there in their computer lab. So now post COVID, what we did is, as Rajiv ji said, we prepared a question bank of 1,500 questions based upon the GEM Green Building Reference Guide. And we uploaded that question bank on the portal. And now what we are doing is we are giving online trainings in the institutions, and the students are registering for the examination. They are scheduling their examination as per their convenience and comfort. They can take the examination from their home, their workplace, their offices. And this is an online examination. They can appear for the examination anytime in future. So we give them online training, and then they can appear for the examination anytime. And I would like to add here that I was talking to a very senior person at NSDC, National Skill Development Council. So he was telling me that they are using a system where, say, I am taking an examination, I am a student, and when, say, I am moving my head here and there, left and right, so it will capture my movement, and it will raise the concern that this guy is moving his head here and there. And so, I mean, this kind of technology is definitely going to take shape in India. So, I mean, this will resolve a problem that, working, I'm taking the examination from my home and I'm opening my notebook or not. So this will definitely help us. So Thank you so much, Sanjay ji, for this beautiful insight. And definitely we will talk to Vishnu ji also. Before that, we have a very learned, very experienced personality with us, Professor KK Agarwal ji. Sir, namaskar. Professor KK Agarwal ji is the chairman of National Board of Accreditation, and he has huge experience. And we are lucky, blessed, and honored that he is with us today for this discussion. Professor Agarwal ji has obtained his Bachelor of Engineering degree from Punjab University and Masters from NIT Kurukshetra. Later, he did his PhD from NIT Kurukshetra. And after a distinguished service of 27 years at NIT Kurukshetra, Professor Agarwal served as a Pro Vice Chancellor GGU Hisar for a period of 3 years, and then Founder Vice Chancellor of GGS Indraprastha University, Delhi, for a period of 10 years. He has been President of Institution of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineers for the period of 2002 to 4, and President Computer Society of India from 2007 to 9, and President of Southeast Asia Regional Computer Confederation from 2008 to 2010. Sir, you have huge experience of education. You have huge experience of handling the organizations like electronics and communication, telecommunication engineers. So, with your vast experience, we would like to know that what should be the best solution, or what should be the alternate of this offline and online discussion. Where should we go and where should we stop? Over to you, sir.
Thank you. You can hear me?
Yes, sir.
Friends, it's a pleasure to be a part of this webinar on a great topic. I thank Professor Rajiv Kumar to be here. He's member secretary AICT at the moment, has been in my contact for more than 2 decades. And I'm pretty sure with his sincerity and comprehension, AICT is in for many big changes. We talked about examination reforms, which is very relevant to the today's discussion. And I personally know that the examination reforms was primarily his baby, even when he was not a secretary at that time. And that has made a lot of difference. Well, I'll talk about it in a minute. Kumar Shekhar Vijendra, Chancellor of Shobit University and Vice Co-Chairman of your SHM Education Committee. We have been meeting, I think, every couple of months on some platform or the other, talking about education. So I think there is probably nothing which we have not talked about. So it may be repetition to some extent for him. But I can see him experimenting a few good things, and that is what is the need of the hour. Then I have on the panel Neeraj Arora. He is Senior Director SHM, but over the interactions, I do find him very deeply involved in education. I am preceded and succeeded by people from VBox in this talk, and finally Dr. Poonam Devda from Shobit Deemed University. Thank you all very much. Nice to be here. I have been introduced by Neeraj as a person with a vast experience, numerically, yes. But when you come to the technologies of today, sometimes a vast experience may be counterproductive. I don't know, because you're that old in the whole process. Nonetheless, see, the point which is being discussed today and which we have discussed on many other subjects also, we are getting used to binary answers to the subjects. And I think 2 years before, you ask anybody in AICT, can engineering education be done online? Answer is no. Definite no. And now, if you ask anybody across the country, there is nothing to beat online. That is the answer. And according to me, both are wrong answers. I mean, there is a degree of correctness in both these answers. I did some research on fuzzy mathematics, and I think life is really fuzzy. And we belonging to the computer science area have tried to make it binary. Everything is either 0 or 1. Life is not that. We have fuzzy variables all the time, and we have to talk about it. It was just told that there were difficulties face-to-face, no doubt about it. There were difficulties in face-to-face. I remember the only time when an IAS examination question paper was leaked in the history of this country, and we found the leakage was at the level of a postman in the country, because he was carrying a bundle of question papers from one point to another, and he tampered with it. Now, these were the challenges, no doubt about it. I myself remember I conducted the very first examinations for RECs at that time, which are now NITs, and we very nicely got back the 24 question books. Question books used to be very thick because multiple choice questions, 24 question books per packet, and the student seating arrangement very meticulously done. Night before the exam, it occurred to me, if the invigilator opens the packet and there are 23 question books instead of 24, what will he do? At that spur of the moment, he will have nothing, no solution. So what does he do? And I cannot take the risk of opening and checking, because that gives away the complete transparency. I mean, I'm just sharing with you, what I did was I got a balance and weighed all the question paper packets, because the difference between 23 and 24 was sizable and I could detect it. So the point which I'm trying to say is there were difficulties. We had glitches, but we have faced it and lived with it all this time. Then came this unfortunate COVID, which forced the disruption on us. It was rightly said that the disruptions do lead to creation. Yes, but every disruption may not lead to creation. A seed has to break to give us a tree. Egg has to break to give us a bird. All that is true, but not that for creation everything must break. So there has to be what we call as a creative destruction and destructive construction. Now, these are the terms which take us forward. And I always say, I take recourse to Indian mythology, which created Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh on one day. We knew that if Brahma has to be there, Shiva also has to be there. If the world is not destroyed, we'll not be able to sustain. And if Shiva has to be there, Brahma has to be there for recreation and making it happen. So that was our mythology, which taught us that construction and destruction has to coexist and go in hand, then only world will survive. And we did that very well. Technologists will very finally talk about advantages, and understandably so. We are all so grateful to technology. As a matter of fact, I think Neeraj now can afford to call me any alternate week. I mean, if it were face to face, I would not have been in hands even once in 6 months. So that is the kind of advantage which we have. Other day I had a webinar which by multiple connections had about 8,000 people on. That is possible only when this. I mean, on one day, I think I addressed a morning, a 10 o'clock meeting in Jaipur, 12 o'clock in Delhi, and 4 o'clock in Bombay. Now, that was possible only because of a digital technology. So there are advantages, no doubt about it. But is it a panacea for everything? I have my reservations. It has many advantages. Let's live on advantages. My take to all the cross sections of the societies, let's take the merits of everything and try to dwell on it. Let's not start believing that this is the only solution for everything. And once we go with that mindset, let me pick up the best of this, best of this, best of this. I may probably be able to arrive at a very good solution. Everybody talked about new education policy. It's a wonderful thing. At least we believed in this country that things have to change. I mean, you in the domain of education feel 34 years you can live without a major change. That itself is deplorable, and any other adjective I can use. 34 years you feel that major changes are not required in the education policy itself is a bankruptcy somewhere which was going on. And I certainly believe we must have an education policy, if not earlier, every decade or so, because things are changing so fast. Why I'm trying to say that is, now everybody knows that I have an interest in education policy, like all academicians. So everybody in the WhatsApp or whatever, how many groups I have, how many people I have, everybody is such a great well-wisher. He will send me a summary of new education policy. And I would try to read everything because somebody may say something new. And ultimately, I find there was so much of copying. And the way I learned to discover copying was I found one wrong spelling in one WhatsApp. And then whenever I get a new WhatsApp, I just look for that spelling first. If it's the same wrong spelling, then I say it's a repeat message. And I think what I wanted to tell you is, I think I have received one message maybe 70, 80 times. Now, that's the power of technology. But is it not somewhere waste of technology also? How much bandwidth we are using, wasting in the whole process? And someday we will also have to make sure of these things and how to find out the best. I think the new education policy, the beauty is two things which I always liked and talked about: multidisciplinarity and autonomy. These two have been addressed pretty well in the new education policy, and I'm very happy about it. Multidisciplinarity has been talked about the first time in the real sense. For the first time, we have told that our great technical institutions should become multidisciplinary. Otherwise, how do you believe that an institution can deliver to the society when there are all engineers, nobody else? There is no philosophy person, no economics person, no psychology person, and we expect great solutions to the problem. I can't imagine on earth you can solve the energy problem of the country or drinking water problem of the country only talking amongst engineers. It's just not possible. Look at the COVID itself. If you would have talked only to the doctors, you would have made a mess of it. Even now, wherever you missed a small thread of migratory problem, you had a problem. So there are so many threats to a problem, and therefore multidisciplinarity is a must. And second point, which I like the most, is autonomy. Because without autonomy to our institutions, I'll talk about it a little more, we were really in a mess. Nowhere in the world it is accepted that I will teach what I have to teach, somebody else will decide. Some committee in the university will prepare a piece of one-page paper and send me that you have to teach this. I will do whatever I can. Then somebody else will set the question paper who may not have any idea about my mindset. Students will write. Now, obviously, students will write expecting what I taught them. Then these answer books will go to an examiner who neither knew what I wanted to teach, nor he knew what paper setter I had in mind when he set the question paper, and he will evaluate the answer books. So that is the system of affiliation which we have to finish, and I'm happy and hope that it will go along, that after 10 years, at least we will not have an affiliated institution in the country if this policy keeps implemented very well. Having said that, I think I'll agree with the introduction which Dr. Rajiv Kumar said. It's not a question of online and offline first. First is a question of examination itself. Why should we examine a person, and how should we examine a person? I sometimes read a paper which is beautiful. It says word examination itself is wrong. You examine somebody when there is a fixed reference. A doctor examines you by taking your temperature because he knows it has to be 98.4. 98.4 is known to him before he takes your temperature and then finds you whether you are above or below it. He takes your BP, he knows it has to be 120 by 80 to 130 by 90. So reference is known to him, and then he finds whether it's lower or higher. Diabetics, he knows that it has to be 80 fasting or something, and then he examines you. What are we examining when we examine a student? I mean, I can't answer in terms of fixed parameters. What am I trying to examine? Because I don't have any fixed reference. Do I say a student must know 73% mathematics, 64% English, 22% physics? That is what I'm examining? No, I don't have those parameters. So it's really assessment. And I think that is where we got probably confused. We want to assess a student. what can he or she do the best? That had to be our philosophy. Examining and selection or rejection, it was not supposed to be a filter system. It was supposed to be an assessment system of what he or she can do best. And that is where I think we made the largest mistake, creating mess where engineers and doctors are committing suicide because their parents forced them to go to engineering college or a medical college they never wanted to be. And some of them who revolted did exceptionally well in life, and that is what we have missed many times. So examination per se has to be something very noticeable. And one more credit I go to give to National Education Policy is, well, changing the name of the ministry from Human Resource Development to Education. Human resource word had placed extraordinarily large emphasis on placements. You're creating human resource, so he must be placed. He must get a good job. What is the salary was our benchmark? I agree, placement should be the objective of a university, but placement should not be the only objective of a university. Real objective of a university has to be employability, not the placement, and learnability, not the immediate placement, because the graduate of today will change at least 8 to 10 jobs during his lifetime. Gone are the days like us. We entered a job and retired from that job. That's not going to happen with the graduates of today. 8 to 10 is the statistics which is being talked about. And what are these 8 to 10 jobs? He doesn't know, I don't know, his father doesn't know, his university doesn't know. So that is the blind game which we all have to play. And therefore, learnability has to be the name of the game, which has to be there in education. And how do we assess that? That has not been done. Even companies today, I read, they are now placing less emphasis on what you know. When they are hiring you, their HR departments are being trained. Yes, find out what he has learned, but find out, can he learn when he is asked to learn something new? That's a new challenge for companies. And we have to create that new challenge from the education institution. I went to Stanford University for some interactions, and they beautifully told me, we measure the level of our placements where our students are 20 years after graduation, not on the day of graduation. How do they make their path themselves for the 20 years is a measure of our success. That's the method of assessment examination which has to take. Another beautiful sentence which I heard from a good university abroad, they say, Professor Agarwal, our measure of success will be, can I invite a graduate of mine to address the convocation of my university within 20 years? Can I make sure a graduate of my university reaches that level of eminence that I can feel pride in inviting him as a chief guest to the convocation of my university? That's my measure of performance. So these are the intangible parameters which we missed in the game of marks and grades and credits, which were equally important and which were difficult to attempt. So assessment examination is subjective, will have to remain subjective to some extent. Making it very objective, we are losing some things, which I will like to express here. Now, irrespective of the COVID, assuming COVID would not have been there, then also examination required a great deal of change, and that is why Professor Rajiv Kumar initiated the discussion of this. Examinations had to change. I mean, you look at the history of good universities abroad. I read a case study. They say Einstein taught for about a year. In the second year of his teaching career, he was distributing question papers, and his research assistant said, "Sir, you probably made a mistake. You picked up the wrong packet." He said, "What happened?" He says, "Sir, you are distributing the question paper which you gave last year." He says, "Don't worry. I have intentionally done that." He says, "Sir, I have given the same question paper, but I expect different answers this time because knowledge has changed in the year. and I have taught it differently. Now, how many of us can dare to say that knowledge has changed in a year and our examination system should reflect that? I saw another case study. The teacher comes to the class. He says, write a question of your choice. Write a question of your choice and answer it. I mean, I don't think any student ever expected such a crazy method of examination. And he says, write a question of your choice and answer it. And then he says, I will not evaluate you on the answer because obviously you will write the question whose answer is no. I will write you how nice questions you have designed. And that is where Dr. Rajiv Kumar was hinting. Bloom's taxonomy, recall, synthesis, analyze. Can I design questions which can test all these capabilities or some of these capabilities? Our examination system had become so monotonous, so routine that, I think most of the people here would agree with me. There's a standard practice in the university. Look at last 3 years question paper, and you can probably predict this year's question paper reasonably well. Now, that is not an examination. So our examination system itself requires a lot of change. Yes, I agree. Online will help me to make some of those changes easily. Because offline, I couldn't have question bank of 1,500 question papers. Now I can. So online could be a very good support mechanism for even offline examination or traditional examination, and that is where I feel the blend of the two will be required. Today, I'm not talking about blended learning. I'm talking only about examination. And I believe when autonomy comes, when teacher will be the paper setter, teacher will be the evaluator, we should certainly move to 70 to 75% continuous evaluation. And end semester examination should not carry more than 25 to 30% weightage in any case. And this has been done in the universities abroad. I'll tell you my personal family's example. My son went abroad for the first time from a small town like Kurukshetra. And right in the first semester, an American professor, 1 week before the examination, tells Ashutosh, you need not appear in my exam. Now look at this statement if made in this country, you will start perspiring, what's wrong with me? He says, sir, what happened? He says, on the basis of your assignments and interactions so far, I have decided to give you A+. Now, whether you appear it in my exam or not, I don't care. Can we empower the teacher in this country to that extent? If not, why not? I remember when I was a young teacher, I had a student in my class. It's a little technical thing, but there is a subject called armature reaction in electrical generators and motors. It's a very small component. I think every teacher teaches it for about 10 minutes. The boy wrote all 28 pages on armature reaction. And I could not pass it. Because out of 5 questions, he has not attempted 4. And he has attempted part of the 5th question. So I can give him 10 on 10 at best. And he still gets 10 on 100 and fails. But he is a boy who will give me excellent generators in the future, excellent motors in the future. And I should have every right to give him A grade, irrespective of the pattern of examination. So these are the unconventional things which we will have to bring in. People talked about knowledge and skills. Some of the skills are still very difficult to measure, and we are challenging with it. But nonetheless, efforts are being made, and we will go ahead and do that. I went as a chairman of inspection of a deemed university. It's a good deemed university. Now it has come in the national ranking also, and I'm talking more than 20 years ago. And the vice chancellor there told me very nicely so. He says, sir, our students are so good. They have networked my complete school. They have a school also as a management. They have networked the complete school themselves without requiring any professional agency. I said, very good. But I smiled. I said, sir, what, sir? I said, problem with our universities is you will still force them to appear in a theory paper on networking, pass it, and then only you will say they know networking. If they have networked the complete school, why can't the university give them A grade in networking without asking them to appear in a 3-hour theory exam. So our examination system requires a lot of flexibility, and much of this flexibility can be built online. So there could be several advantages of online. So far, we have practically used online in the world just before COVID, practically online for mass skill filtering, JEE, GRE, GMAT, where we had such a large number and we had to filter. And most practical, not practical, most common method of online examination has been multiple choice questions. Except now we are talking about scanning answer books and even handwritten things and all. These are very recent phenomena of a couple of years and more so in COVID. But multiple choice questions used to be by and large the trend, and this. And I read with using artificial intelligence, which again was taught, you can teach a computer to learn JEE and he can score 90% marks. Now, if a computer, a dummy box, can score better than the toppers of JEE, where are we? Is that the fairest method of examination? Is that the fairest method of assessment? So assessment will have to be a combination of several things. Online can do some of the parts nicely, but online certainly, at least as of now, maybe with another few years maturing, we will be able to do. But as of now, I think examination advantage, according to me, still goes in the classroom for most of the things, still goes in the laboratory for most of the things, supplemented by online, yes, unless we mature enough. Yes, teaching, blended learning, very good. Examination, blended, but probably ratio of blend. Let us not start believing that we need only online learning and online examination. We do need online learning to a good extent, maybe 50%, 60%, 40%. We may be able to use online examinations to another good extent, but to a small extent. We will have to combine a group discussion. Teachers conducting viva of the students is a great examination method. We will have to revive it in a much bigger fashion. I mean, even in IAS examination today, which is the most prestigious examination of a country, we still have 300 marks for the interview. Why can't we dispense with it? We cannot. We cannot dare to do that, because heavens will really fall if we do that. So the point is, why can't that be required for an engineer, for a doctor? So there are several things which are a best of both worlds, and I believe let's keep it flexible, keep it better of both worlds, and see what can we do. Otherwise, I mean, I'll end by a small WhatsApp joke. This is a teacher asked in a class, how many kidneys we have? And the student said 4. Teacher shouted at him. Everybody knows we have 2. He says, sir, you said we. I have 2. I believe you also have 2. So both of us have 4. So your question was how many kidneys we have. Now this kind of a student we should not lose in the process of our online examinations, because these are the kinds of students at times who change the world, and we must be able to spot them, nurture them, bring the creativity out of them. Unless that creativity quotient can also be found, innovation quotient can also be found by some mechanism, I think we'll be losing something. And at the moment, it appears are not very easy on online platform. And maybe given another couple of years, it will be possibly done. And I'll wait for that time till I come to the conclusion that online is the solution for everything. That's my take on this. Thank you very much. And over to Neeraj to carry it forward. Thanks.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for this wonderful session. Definitely, sir. I mean, when I was listening to you, I mean, I was just forgot everything. I mean, which was happening around me. So this is the benefit of online, that we are listening to you. You are sitting in Delhi, and we are, some other state. So anyway, sir. Yeah, very rightly said, sir. I got 3 major points from your speech. That is, who should be assessed, why should be assessed, and how should be assessed. So, sir, definitely this is a question for us. Second, sir, you are very right that there should be some emotional touch between the student and the faculty and the teacher, because without that emotional touch, I mean, nothing is possible, because a student is not learning from the books. He is learning from the body language of a teacher. I mean, the vibes he is getting from the teacher. Many times a teacher is a mentor for his, and the life of a student gets turned because of a very good teacher. So, but yes, you are absolutely right, sir. This online system will definitely polish our offline system, and a combination of 50 or 60-40 will be a better solution for the coming years. Yes, we are following offline system since last many years, and now we are trying to polish it with the online systems, and this will definitely work out, sir. And because nowadays our kids are very smart. My son of 6 years age, he is capable to use the computer system, in fact, better than me, because he is using the online classes since last 4 months. So this generation is very fast, and it will definitely learn online system as well. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Now we have with us Vishnu Nepakji. He is a digital transformation consultant, CRO, VBox. Mr. Vishnu leads VBox Cloud-enabled talent assessment business for India, with a mission to help organizations and institutions digitally transform their talent and skill development initiatives. He is a business leader with over 2 decades of experience, and have worked with the Microsoft, Gartner, Avaya, and NIIT in various capacities prior to VBox. So, Vishnuji, you have so much of experience of handling online systems, so online examination, online training, and all those. So, with your experience, we would like to listen at how Hello, Vishnuji, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, just want to confirm if you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm sharing my screen.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you so much, Neeraj, for organizing this. I think what I've been seeing in the chat window is everyone appreciated, and most importantly, the timing of this session, because the national policy was there yesterday, and because we never timed it. Sometimes the timing also happens, in a very synchronized manner. And again, thank you, because I have been really making notes while listening to all the education time and education, system over here. And for example, what Mr. Kovarji said is that because of the new education policy, you'd love to go back to the colleges. And yes, I think, or being part of the new education policy, being part of this education ecosystem. And thankfully, because this is what I've been experiencing over last 2-3 months now. Now that I've been interacting with many, education institutes, education reformists, right? As if I feel that I've almost earned a degree without going to the college. I think that's going to be the virtual world which you will live now, because everything is, I think most of the things has moved online and will be moving offline. And I completely appreciate the viewpoint by each of the distinguished guests over here, talking about the blended way of learning, blended way of examination. Yes, I think that's the way we need to go for. But I think we need to carefully assess that what can go really online and what should remain offline, and completely appreciate the view. For example, Rajiv ji was mentioning a very, I think he picked a very nice point. We're talking about that it is important for our education ecosystem to understand what to access, right? He spoke about the Bloom taxonomy and the way our assessment was, examination was being conducted, the way the question paper was set. But I completely appreciate that. Yes, I think as an education ecosystem, we should focus on that. What is that we need to assess for the student, so that we understand that the student has the right amount of skill, right amount of talent, whether it can be employable, or what is the intervention which is required as you go forward. I think that's one point which I really captured. Second, I think what thank you. Well, I think you made a very valid point. You spoke about two things. You spoke about the learnability, and yes, learnability has become a new question today. And I will speak about my experience in my previous organization at Microsoft. One of the key cultural change which the leader who Satya Nadella brings is about making sure that there is something called a learning mindset with each of the employees of the organization. He spoke about one thing, He spoke about if an organization has to grow, we have to change from the mindset of know it all to learn it all. And until unless we do that, we will be still in the ocean of thoughts that we know it everything, and therefore our learning agility becomes really, really challenged. So I think this is going to be interesting discussions. And again, thank you very much. As we are in today, we are in really something called a virtual world, right? So is virtual the new reality? We don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. But yes, I think maybe the situation has forced us to adopt many things. And one of the key things is about the virtual world. And thankfully, we are in the digital era, right? Yeah, unfortunately, COVID is struck and things are changing and have changed, right? Whether we're getting to the new normal or this is the normal, we don't know. But at least the solace, or I can say the silver lining of everything is that we are in the digital age. And that's the reason we are talking, we are interacting, we are doing business, we are helping our education's ecosystem to strive. We are ensuring that the impact on the student is really, really minimal. So with this, I'm going to talk about how technology is helping evolve the overall online examination ecosystem. So let's talk, see, when you talk about online examination has always been there. It has been there for the last 6, 7, 8 years, right? But how the evolution of cloud, how the infusement of artificial intelligence, how the development of analytical capability has made this the complete paradigm shift of how the online examination is being conducted. The big question always remains that can online examinations replace offline question? And again, say the answer may be no, the answer may be yes. But only thing which I can say is about the way the things are changing, the way the is helping, and more specifically the artificial intelligence, the more specifically the cloud era we are in, and the analytical capability. I think online examinations may be the new norm as we go forward. Now, with this, I'm sharing my screen. I'm going to present a couple of pointers in terms of how we can really do a very scalable and secure online examination. The first thing, if you talk about, yes, you understand these challenges. These challenges would be, yes, in terms of the user, do they have a computing devices? Do they have a laptop? Do they have a mobile devices? And even if they have a mobile devices, are they smartphone? Do they have a computing devices? Do they have the latest versions or not? That's user challenges. Second is about bandwidth connectivity. Yes, I think if you talk about today, there has been a very high focus to ensure that the quality of the bandwidth or the quality of the connectivity is improving, but that's going to take time. But as you speak today, at least 80%, I think that's the number I'm talking about, has a 4G connections today, and at least in the urban areas. In the rural, it's around 65 to 70%, right? Third, when talking about the online examination, most of even from the student perspective, and even from the institute perspective, the experience of taking online examination may be the first time. Therefore, the challenges will remain that, okay, what is this? What are the new things? Whether I can do it, whether it makes sense for me, right? Whether I can be successful in attempting my high-stake examination online mode. I think those element of fear will always remain on the user from the user perspective. Academic, the first thing is about the scalability, because the numbers can be few lakhs, few thousands. How the system, how the online platform is capable to take this so much load at one point of time, at a single point of time. Because in offline, yes, it's a more a logistic challenge, but when we're talking about an online, it is all a system driven. Therefore, that's the system of the capability to take so much of high loads in a concurrent way at the same time. Security and compliances, I just heard Professor Agarwal speaking about how the leakage of examinations paper has happened in one incident, and because of some at the last mile, someone was taking the question paper from point A and point B, and it got leaked, and it was really, it gone viral. But in case of an online examinations, it uses a very, very secure. For example, today, I guess 90% of our financial transactions happens using online, right? And with the infusing the security feature, I think the whole data is so secure. It is next to impossible for someone to go and find out the nitty-gritty of the question paper, which is already created. And second is about, because of the question bank, because of the technology which is there, it's possible to randomize the question, and you can create as many as the question bank, and the technology can randomize the question so that till the nth moment, till the time the students goes and appear for the examination, he may not be aware what question paper he will be getting because of the randomization feature or the capability the online examination platform has. And thirdly, yes, I think when you're talking about the very high-stake examination, it has to be monitored. We cannot have the student taking the examinations at their own will. So we don't know whether he's getting he's being proxied, he's getting help with someone else, or he's using a book to take the examinations. So how the technology can monitor examinations irrespective of the students taking from anywhere for this high-stake examination. Now, how can technology So how can we overcome these challenges, both from the user perspective and as well as the institution perspective? The first is when you're talking about the user, the first is, yes, you understand they may have an access to computing devices, but they may also have a good consistent bandwidth. In that case, you can talk about a remote proctor test, which means the student is taking the examination, he can be viewed online throughout the exam duration. And even if he has to be intervened, it can be done. We can infuse AI, artificial intelligence, to give all the required warnings. For example, I heard Neeraj talking about the technology. We already have the technology. This means that if the student is moving away from the test window, or if someone else is taking the test, or for example, he's using a mobile devices or a book for that matter, the system will automatically detect and give a warning to the student, and also give a warning to someone who is proctoring the test at a remote locations far away from where the student is taking the examination. There's also possibility that he may not have an access to the computing devices, or he may have only for example, a mobile device, and may have a low or inconsistent bandwidth. In such scenario also, we have the technology where we can do a tier 1 level of proctoring. In the tier 1 level of proctoring, what you do is you do something called image proctored, which means when the student is taking the examination, his image is getting captured at a frequency, at a predefined frequency, for example, 30 seconds. This will ensure that the student is the same student who is the bona fide student to take the examinations, is only taking the examination, and no one else is either helping him or no one else is taking his place. So in a way, we can also ensure that, yes, there is no cheating, there is no proxy, and he is taking the examinations in a proctored environment. And yes, we understand there are challenges in terms of first-time users of online examinations. And the way we have tried and we have been doing to overcome this challenge is to do something called open mock or practice test. So during the open mock and practice test, which can go for maybe a few days before the real examination, the student will get a hang about the system. The student will understand what is requirement from the system perspective, from the software perspective, and from the experience perspective, and he can be well prepared when the date of the real examination comes, as and when after 3 days, 4 days after the mock test. Now coming to the scalability, now as from that's the user perspective. Now when it comes to institution has 3 challenges. Can the online examinations be scalable, right? Thankfully, we are in the world of cloud. We are living where AI is helping human to make the things easier. We have built enough data and the analytics, right? Therefore, the scalability will never be challenged, and more importantly, if the online platform hosted on something called a tier 4 data center, like the big threes you're talking about, either Microsoft, either AWS, or for that matter, Google, right? We at VBox have hosted a solution, Microsoft, which is empaneled or which is certified by MITI. It has got an auto scalable, which means irrespective of the number of students taking the examination, irrespective of the number of students who is hitting our server at the same time, the system has the capability to auto, and I think that's the beauty of technology, right? For example, in an offline examination, if you have to plan for 100 candidates to take an examination, the 1,000 candidate examination, you have to do this preparation much days and days in advance. But when it comes to online, it's absolutely, in just a fraction of a second, the system will automatically upgrade and will take care of any load that may hit the server as far as the online examinations is concerned. Security, there's a multiple, because we use the same data center where all our financial houses hosted their application for doing the transactions online, right? And to further certifying, and from the certification perspective, there's an ISO certification There's a certification from CERTI, which is the government of India. Then there is a rapid assessment. So for every data which travels, either in transit or when it's traveling from one port to another, it's completely transcripted, and there is no way any hacker, for that matter, can go and find out the decrypted version of the data. When I say data, it could be results, it could be question bank, it could be any data for that matter, is on the best possible secured layer. Monitoring, we have multiple levels of monitoring, just capturing the students while taking the examinations, to doing an online proctoring infused with AI capability. We can talk about any level of monitoring, depends on the student's availabilities of the bandwidth or his access to the computing devices. We need to ensure at the same time the user experience should remain the same, or should be the replication of an offline. For example, when a student's in examination hall, he will be asked to prove his identity, right? So can the same process be replicated in an online platform? The answer is yes. We do have a system where the student will be asked to prove his identity by clicking his photograph, by providing his ID proof, and someone as an approver will see, and only when he is satisfied that the student who has registered for the examinations, has come to take these online examinations, can be allowed to will be allowed to view the question papers. Otherwise, he will not be allowed to take the online examination. Secondly, the candidate can, as a candidate, he can also have an option to chat with the proctor for any help that they require during the examination. It happens, for example, if a candidate is taking an offline examination, he may have a question, and in a physical classroom, he can ask those questions to a invigilator who will be there in the room throughout the examination time. And the same thing applies here. If any questions, he has a chat window, he can ask the proctor. For example, my question is not reflected in that matter, so he can have those questions answered by using a live chat with the proctor. And as I say, I think as a platform, it has to be, or as a solution, it has to be compatible both to the laptop as well as mobile. And in mobile, in terms of about the mobile penetration of India today is almost 85 to 90%. So which means that almost 90% of the students can take the examinations even if they have a mobile phone, or if they have a laptop, it is recommended. But even if they don't have a laptop, only a mobile smartphone will be more than enough for them to take the examinations from their home. Now, coming to the institution journey, but yes, from institution, they have to ensure that there is no additional burden when it comes to an installation of a software or purchase of any software is required. It's a completely as a pay-per-use model, which means that they have to just talk about how many number of students has to take an examination, and it's not a capital investment; it's only operational expenses. From the institution journey's perspective, we have to ensure that they also have the same experience, the replication of the same process, which they would otherwise do in conducting an offline examination. The first is about they should be able to see the students taking the examinations to ensure that the student is not cheating, not malpracticing, there is no proxies and things like that. Everything can be done online as the way they would do in an offline examination. Second, I think the technology, how can the technology is helping, right? The technology can be used only when, for example, can be leveraged if it can ease the things from a institution perspective. The online examination platform has an inbuilt capability where it can instant results, right? And with the rich data analytics capability which the institute can use for the development of the student, or maybe from the examination ecosystem as a whole. Second, yes, I think many questions that I think it's always a given thing that when someone thinks about an online examination, they always think online examination is only MCQ or multiple choice questions. No, I think things have evolved over a period of time, right? And specifically because we at VBox have been working closely with many institutes and you understand the requirement. We have been always very customer centric and customer focused. Develop a platform in such a way that it can take care of any type of subjective questions, including if a subjective question has to be supported by a complex diagram, or let's say a circuit diagram or anything like that, which cannot be drawn online, we have an option where the students can write it on a pen and paper and scan and upload using a mobile phone, again using a secure layer back to the test engine. So these are a couple of recommendations, as I say, that we have been working closely with many institutes, more, I think, importantly, last 3-4 months' time, and we're happy to share in terms of what has been the best practices of conducting an online examination. The first, we understand that is about that it is important that when the student is taking the examination, he should be in a very secluded room. He should not, there shouldn't be anyone else in the room, or he should not have any books or something like some other object which he may try to take in help from. Therefore, we do something called a room scan. So students will be asked to scan the room on the 360-degree, and only if I, as an approver, is assured that there is no any other third thing which the student can take help, we can allow them to take the examinations. Till the time, he will not be allowed to enter the online examination platform. Foreign objection identifications, again, there's AI. I think the way we've used AI, the AI is used to help us, help we as an individual to make sure that the exam is being done in a very foolproof manner. So what are the important components of foreign object identifications? It could be a mobile phone, it could be a book, it could be anything for that matter, which may help the students to do some sort of cheating, can be identified using the artificial intelligence capability which our platform has. Gunstart, when talking about Gunstart, it does the same thing like when in an offline examination, the student will only be allowed to see the question paper at a designated time. Till the time, they will be only be allowed to sit in the examinations hall, maybe they will be allowed to scribble something on the answer sheet, but not be allowed to see the question paper, not be distribute the question paper. Yeah, the same thing applies here. And then coming to the open checking system, and this is one of the things which you normally do is to ensure that the student has got the requisite hardware, the requisite software.
Mr. Vishnu?
Yeah.
So please, I would request you to please, take it fast, because we have to start another webinar also.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, got it. So this is, I think, in the open check system is to ensure that a student has the requisite hardware software, so that when it comes to the final test, it will be a very easy or a very smooth experience for them. Now we speak about thought leadership. I think the India skill report, which is to ensure that, because we understand from the demand side and the supply side from the skill gap, and we do publish as a part of a social initiative, which give impetus to the education, to the government, to ensure that they develop India as the skill capital of the globe. Now, these are the few universities, and all universities have adopted online examinations over the last 3-4 months, starting from the IITs to the IIMs to the reputed deemed universities, and it is across the length and breadth of country. It is not that only specific to urban cities. For example, TMU, I'll give an example. TMU is conducting examinations across the belt of UP, right? And I think that's talk about the availability of the devices and also the availability or access to the internet bandwidth. So this is, I think, in a short, in terms of how online examinations can help education institutes to ensure that the academic continuity happens, and they become, I think, they minimize the impact the students will have, and so they will have a better career, better academic progressions as they go forward. So thank you so much. Happy to take any questions. Or we
Thank
have
you
the
so
email
much.
IDs.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Vishnuji. Thank you so much. I was looking at the chat box, and I was seeing that some attendees are asking the questions, and you or your team are answering the questions there as well.
Yeah.
So I can see there. Thank you so much, Vishnuji, for this wonderful presentation. And yes, definitely, there are many mechanisms where we can control the entire mechanism of taking the examination, as you mentioned in your presentation. This was really wonderful. Now I have got 2 questions in the chat box. So I would request one question from Rajiv ji and one question from Professor KK Agrawal ji. So Rajiv ji, I would like to take first question from you, that some of the attendees want to know that we are focusing, our entire this discussion is focusing on the students. I mean, what we are discussing is that we are talking that how can we take care of our students for this online examination system or online teaching learning system? Do you think that there is a need to train our teachers also on the online systems? Because our teachers, our professors, they are used to take the classes, physical classes, offline classes. So now there is a strong need where we should, the bodies like UGC, AICT, and other bodies should take care where our teachers should also be trained on online mechanism, so that they can handle our students well. Unmute, sir.
Neeraj, this issue regarding the training of the teachers for conducting online classes, I will salute my teaching faculty that without having any formal training, and in this difficult time, they were not even having the devices. They adopted the technology in the minimum time required, and they could conduct the maximum classes in maximum university in our country. So we should salute our faculty members for this great initiative. Of course, if formal training is there, that will definitely help. Some of the universities I know, they have given formal training, and companies, those who have these platforms where the education was imparted, they have also organized some of the programs, training programs for the faculty members. And I think this situation, this pandemic has given this opportunity to our faculty that they could learn, they could understand this technology also. But of course, in time to come, if universities and the students, they adopt this, some part of this technology in conducting their classes, definitely this formal training for conducting examination and the conduct of classes will definitely help. But so far, we have not planned any formal training to our teachers as far as DICT is concerned.
Thank you, sir. And you're absolutely right, sir. In last 4 months, our educational institutions and especially our faculties have played a wonderful role. That I mean, because of their support only, we were able to sustain this entire ecosystem of education. Otherwise, it was never possible, because you cannot force anybody. So this is the internal will of our teachers, our faculty members, our universities, that they have handled the situation so well that I mean this. I don't think any better solution out of this, considering the situation. Thank you so much, Rajiv ji. Professor K.K. Agrawal ji, as you talked about emotional quotient, of education. So we have got a very relevant question for you, and this question is just a minute, sir. This question is that do you think that online education opens our access areas, broadens, but the society will divide into two parts? Because the urban and the economically stable people will be benefited a lot, whereas the economically backward people will lose the most due to lack of connectivity, Android mobiles, poor network system, or poor infrastructure. So do you think that eventually this will be divided into two parts, sir?
Well, this question is eternal. The divide between rich and poor to some extent will always remain, and their potential to translate that into actual realities of life will always be a parameter to reckon with. But I have been a student of information technology, computer science. I think information technology has proved to be one of the best digital bridges rather than digital divide. Say, for example, a smartphone today. You need not have a smartphone for 1 lakh rupees to be able to do almost everything. A smartphone at the price of 5,000 rupees is more than enough to almost use all our purposes. And I always say, I think my driver, my maid, uses phone more than I use. So the society has been rather sort of bridged using this technology. When I was president of Computer Society of India, we did a conscious experiment in Bombay. We invited about 100 maid servants to recognize what a box is, and we kept a old style telephone on the table, and only 2 out of 100 could recognize that this is something which used to be called a phone. But all 100 had the mobile phone, and out of that, 72 had smartphone. So I won't really believe, yes, it's an argument to some extent, it will always remain, but it has been a great bridge, and the way the prices are falling down, there is no other similar situation in the world where capacity has been increasing at such a fast rate and price has been falling down at such a fast rate. I mean, we have never seen, whether in automobiles, whether in any other industry, where a computer of double the capacity, double the power will cost less than half within few months. So that has been a scenario. So I don't think it will happen. And secondly, worst comes to worst, will it be necessary for us to give only rice and dal as a subsidy? We'll be able to give phone also as a subsidy if it comes to that.
Good point, sir. Good point, sir. Absolutely. Very valid point, sir. So I think giving subsidy on rice and dal, it is better to give subsidy on, data or mobiles. So thank you so much, sir. And definitely, sir, definitely. Thank you so much. Now, I would request Center of Psychology and Human Behavior, Shobhit University. Dr. Poonam Devdutt is a consultant psychologist and organizational trainer and currently serving as a director, School of Business Studies. She also actively involved in activities like HRD training in organizations, consultancy in schools, and psychological testing and counseling for students, teachers, parents, teaching psychology and human resource development in business school and professional colleges, and also writing the newspaper columns. So whenever I do any webinar and I request any person for the vote of thanks and concluding remarks, I always tell that this is the toughest job you are going to do. So we have put much responsibility on your shoulders. So over to you, madam, for the concluding remarks and vote of thanks, please. Unmute yourself, please.
Okay. Thank you very much. It is my pleasure and my privilege to state the concluding remarks and also to thank our galaxy of eminent speakers who have made this webinar so meaningful and so valuable for all of us. Of course, the topic is one of contemporary relevance, very vital for all of us connected to the education field. And the ball was set rolling by Shekhar Vijayendra, Chancellor of Shobhit University, who introduced the topic and who emphasized that this new normal of online teaching has come to us in abnormal times. Yes, COVID-19 has brought abnormal times, and that is the challenge that we as educationists have to rise to. The eminent speakers have all given us so much depth of insight into different aspects of education, beginning with Mr. Rajiv Kumar, who raised a very, very fundamental question of not just assessment, but also what are we assessing? So online or offline comes at a later stage. The first is that what are the skills that we are assessing? And he emphasized a fact which we all know, that till now, our education system has largely been assessing based on rote learning. And this is one thing that we all realize needs to be changed. Mr. Rajiv Kumar emphasized the importance of Bloom's taxonomy, which is a very useful guideline for testing the different levels of knowledge of a student. So rote learning is right at the bottom, and that is what we have been testing till now. What we need to move towards is testing the higher levels which are given in Bloom's taxonomy, for instance, analyzing skills, evaluating skills, and creativity skills. So those are very important suggestions which Mr. Rajiv Kumar brought before us. And he concluded by saying that blended is best. I think we all agree with that. And I think all the other speakers also emphasized the same thing. Mr. Sanjay Singh gave us some of the challenges which we are going to be facing, and which all of us who have taken to online education, we have been experiencing those challenges. Among them, of course, the challenges of the hardware, the connectivity, and the challenges of monitoring. That is one of the biggest issues. Coming to one of our most eminent speakers, Dr. K.K. Agarwal, we had the benefit of his deep experience and his deep insights into this whole field. He brought to the forefront some very, very vital issues. The first of all, he spoke about the importance of construction and destruction going hand by hand, side by side. So COVID-19 has brought about a disruption, but this disruption can lead to a new constructive scenario. And it is always something is destroyed, but something new comes out of it. So there is a thesis, there's an antithesis, and ultimately we come to a synthesis of both of these. So Dr. Agarwal also emphasized the fact that we have to pick out the best of both online and offline. We cannot reject offline completely, as he very rightly pointed out, that there are certain things which you can only assess in face-to-face interactions, in direct interactions. So he also emphasized the fact that we have taken 34 years to come out with a new education policy. It was something, a document which was long overdue. And some of the highlights of this document, which he agreed with, were the importance of going multidisciplinary. So as he emphasized that knowledge cannot be bound in any straitjacket, knowledge is not the domain of any one particular subject, but we need to have an interconnectedness. Also spoke about the autonomy which we need to give to our, not only our educational institutions, but also to our teachers, to be able to assess independently without being bound by any straitjacket of, a very, very definite framework. Of course, that is another challenge, and I don't see ourselves coming to that point anytime soon, but definitely it is an ideal that we can move forward towards. Then he also spoke about the change in the nomenclature from Ministry of Human Resource to Ministry of Education, and emphasized the fact that when we speak of human resource, we are talking about placements. And when we talk about education, we are talking about employability. And it is the focus on employability skills, which is extremely important and which we will have to now emphasize further. He also gave us the example of different universities, what's happening in Stanford, how they emphasize the fact that for them, success is if they are able to see where their candidate is going to be 20 years from now. So if that is the real mark of success, not just the immediate placement of the candidate. Of course, one of the speakers, Mr. Nipak, Vishnu Nipak, he was a technological expert, so he gave us a lot of insights about the actual nitty-gritty of going online. What are the challenges? And he also gave us solutions. It is always not enough to just speak about challenges. We need solutions. So the challenges being the challenge of monitoring, the challenge of connectivity, and Mr. Nipak gave us very, very concrete suggestions about how the digital transformation can come through the services of artificial intelligence, through the cloud sphere, through data analytics. These solutions can be found. So very close, if we have to go online, ultimately we will have to develop very, very stringent systems of monitoring so that we do not lead to an unfair situation for some students. So monitoring in a way that the devices can be monitored, the client, the student's environment, the 360-degree monitoring of the space in which he is giving the exam. All these things will help us in going online. So the conclusion I think all of us can draw is that yes, the time has come for drastic changes. The old system will have to give place to the new. But it does not mean that we have to discard the older system completely. And I think the consensus is that some kind of a blend is the answer to go forward. So taking the best of the offline system and combining it with the best of the online, along with the developments of technology, along with support from the government in terms of connectivity and bandwidth, I think the education system of our country is geared up for a massive change. And we all hope that with the guidance of such luminaries, we will be able to move ever forward and to develop an ever better system of education as well as assessment. So thank you all. A big thank you to all the speakers, Mr. Kunwar Shekhar Vijayendra, Mr. Rajiv Kumar, Dr. Agarwal, Mr. Sanjay Singh and Mr. Vishnu Nepak, and of course, our very own Mr. Neeraj for coordinating this whole program so beautifully. So thank you all very much, and also to all the participants who connected with us, and wish you all the very best.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Poonam ji. Your concluding remark and vote of thanks are very, very crisp and very professional, I must say. So thank you so much. This is a wonderful, wonderful vote of thanks I've ever heard. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Agrawal Saab. Thank you so much, Kumar Shekhar Vijendra ji, Rajiv Kumar ji, Vishnu ji, Sanjay ji. Namaskar. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much, dear audience. I can see that around 600 plus attendees joined our program, and still we can see 500 plus attendance. So this is really wonderful, really wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Neeraj.
Thank you.